Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Well, hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. In this episode, we're going to be working on one of my regulars, four-wheeler here. Now, it's there's a sticker on the back that says Manco Talon. It's made by Linhai, which is a Chinese company, which is partnered with Yamaha and Partridge in a Pear Tree. So it came to me with some issues to where, and it was running, it almost acted like it had a rev limiter on it. And as soon as you tried to give it any throttle, it's just, just like that. And the fella didn't have any idea what it could have been or whatever, but over the years, so much wiring has been bodged up on this thing. Basically what I need to do is just go through it and figure it out and get it back to the way it's supposed to be, and then hopefully go from there. So the first important thing to have is to be able to find a schematic diagram. You're not always going to be able to find these, but you got lucky on this one. I use there's a lot of resources you can use to find them. Manuals Lib is one of them. Sometimes even the manufacturer will have a schematic. Maybe not the whole service manual, but they'll have a schematic anyway. So, all right, let's get started. Okay, the switch that goes on the handlebars here, that looks like it had been fixed at one point in time, and I vaguely recall the fella mentioning that. But the starter button doesn't work on it no more. And he had some kind of bodged up thing here that he used to start it with. Now, I'm not going to talk ill of the fella. I mean, all this stuff worked. So, give him props for that. The handbrake up here is all corroded and coming apart, and I guess where the sight glass was for the master cylinder, they kind of fixed that with some JB weld, it looks like. But we got all new parts for this sort of thing, and we're going to bring it back to life and get it to where she needs to be. Now, she's not going to be perfectly factory because we can't find all the factory correct parts for it, but it'll look good and we'll get it right. One thing we've found for sure so far is that the solenoid was bad on it. So we got another one of those. Now, I'm not sure if this is just an Amazon thing or what, but they say that this part is for the 260 Linhai, Bighorn, and Manco Talon. So, but everything is backwards on the plug. You notice this one here, the fuse goes back here, and that's where the connector goes. But on this one, it's reversed, and the pins aren't reversed. So what we have to do is we have to relocate the wires in here. So these inside two blades are for the actual solenoid itself, the starter relay. And then these two out here are just 12 volts straight from the battery to go, like this one, this heavy red wire, that goes to the alternator. And then these other two wires here are, this is a 12 volt feed, and then this is the wire that ultimately goes to the start button. the start button on the handlebars. So what we're having to do, like I said, is kind of switch places with these wires in this connector. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put our new these ends are the wires are real frayed, and you see where we kind of tried to put a little crimp connector on this one, and that's about ready to come apart. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it a little differently, and we're going to use like heat shrink and stuff like that. Make this real nice. And this is where having the proper tool means everything. So just that's fray out. I'm going to try to put this on here. Okay, so there we are with that. And then instead of just smashing it with a pair of pliers, they actually make a tool that's designed to give you that folded crimp. And I think I bought these at Radio Shack like 30 years ago or something. And man, it's just been the best dang tool I've had ever. So what this does, this makes just the proper crimp on there. Okay, and it folds, folds the ends, folds those ends over, and like I said, it just makes it a proper crimp. Then what we'll do, and see now you got a good solid connection there. And we'll take our heat shrink and that kind of helps reinforce the point where the wire goes into these little spade connectors anyway. So we got that one. And we're just going to have to tear that trigger off there. That's machine kind of falls to neglect, if you will. It's just kind of the way it is. Stuff gets worn out and cold over time, and there's not a lot you can do about it. All right, 2 out of 3. Now this one is a wire that goes to the alternator, and yeah, I can imagine how well that worked, huh? Probably not so good. Let's trim that flush. If I've got the right size shrinky dink or not. I might have to go out to the truck and get my roll out there. Yep, looks like I'm gonna have to. Oh, I shall return. Alright, so I'm back and I got my right size stuff here. Well, at least I think I do. Anyway, we'll see here in a minute. If not, I got one size bigger in the upstairs. But nope, this is perfect. what we're going to use for this heavier wire here. It goes to the alternator. There we go. How nice is that, huh? That awesome or what? Now, here's another little slight engineering challenge. This type of connector has a on the little spade lug ends here. It has like a little tab that sticks out in the back here, and that's what retains the connector into this plastic piece here. Now, many folks may not know this, but you can actually use one of these crimp ones because they've got, see how they got these two little slots? There's two little slots right here, and you can take a little jeweler screwdriver and pop that slot out a bit, and that'll lock that connector in there when you slide it down into this plastic piece. Now, we've done everything like we're supposed to. I ground this yellow with a red striped wire. We should hear a pretty robust click out of this relay. There we go. How about that, sports fans? Okie dokie. But now I gotta fix up my battery cables here. I'll put some ends on those as we're going to fix these things up with proper ends on them. The proper way to put these on is not to mash them with a pair of vice grips, but use the appropriate dies in one of these tools here. Ah, there we go. And what this is a hydraulic crimper. And we'll stick this puppy in here and just pump her on out there. All it is a little mini hydraulic ram. And you just keep pumping this ram until it squeezes that end on there. It won't go no more. And that, my friends, is how those ends are supposed to be crimped on there. And they won't come off. And we are good to go here. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That looks good. So, I've got the wiring all sorted out, and we also did some work putting the new handlebar switch on. Now, since we couldn't find an exact replacement for the, well, I say that, it said that it worked on the Linhai Bighorn 260 Manco Talon, which would tell me that it's a direct replacement for this bike, but Apparently not, because the kill switch doesn't look like it was made for one with a powered CDI module. So in other words, it grounded out the ignition when you switched it off. You don't want that. It needs to be just a regular 12-volt switch, so that when you turn the switch on, you're applying 12 volts to the CDI box, and when you turn it off, you're opening the switch. So we had to go through and do a whole bunch of MacGyver stuff like that, because I didn't want to waste time sending the thing back. And it was the only thing that most closely resembled what went on the bike anyway. That was like the only thing different. So it was easy enough just to kind of do some MacGyver stuff on the switch and basically move one of the contacts over to where the switch worked in reverse, so that the little decals on the switch were right. And that's all said and done. So, and we fired it up and tested it, and it's doing good. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to kind of go above and beyond a little bit for the fella. And this bike here belongs to a fella that I bought, or that bought that trailer that I kind of rejuvenated or restored or whatever you want to call it. And he lives with his uncle, and he's kind of elderly, getting up in years. I mean, he can still get around, but you know, he's not into like walking long distances around the farm. And they live up in Kentucky, north of the Corvette Museum a little bit. And he uses this to get around on the farm with, and he had a good bit of trouble out of it. And as I described earlier, the thing wasn't, it just wasn't doing right, and it would act like it had a rev limiter on it. Well, what it ended up being was it was getting power off of the headlights, and there was some kind of backfeed stuff going on there that was messing it up and screwing the CDI box up. So we've got that sorted now, and it revs, it'll rev the red line, no problem. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of go above and beyond a little bit here. It looks like somebody had tried to paint this plastic. So I've got some plastic dye, and we're going to see what we can do with this. Clean it up a little bit before we give it back to him. Yeah, he ain't gonna care. It's not. He'd be just as happy with it getting it back working. But we're gonna do him a solid and spiff it up a little bit before we give it back to him, in true MacGyver style. So now we're starting to work on our plastics here. And it's obvious that someone had tried to paint this in the past, and they didn't get very good adhesion on it. You can see a lot of areas it was it's just flaking off. So more than likely, they just used a regular spray paint, not one that was made for plastic. That's typically when that happens. I'm not sure if someone shot a primer on here, because there's a lot of build. I don't know whether maybe they just shot 50 coats on it or something. I'm not sure, but and it's a type of paint. I'm guessing it was more like an epoxy type paint, because when you go to take it off, it just gums up your paper with a bunch of little balls and everything like this, and loads the paper up real quick, and it's real rubbery and gooey. And you can make your paper last a little bit like maybe hitting it with a wire brush or something, but it's usually you don't know that until you get into it and start trying to sand on it. But at this point we're committed, so we're gonna finish it. And what helps is to have a good collection of sanding blocks. I've got the DuraBlock kit, and it comes with a whole bunch of different shaped blocks, squares, and got some rounds to get in here in these little contours and such, and it works really good. So, but just if you ever run into something like this, just know it's going to be a bit of a process, and as you're sanding, you're going to have to really constantly just sand a little bit and then clean your paper, because it'll just load. It's just going to load your paper up really, really quick, and then you do that, and then clear the paper out. You'll notice the paper will work a lot better and it'll last a lot longer. So, and you want to try and get any imperfections out as well. So I'm going to keep working on this, and watching me work on this is going to be like watching paint dry. So we'll be back in a bit. Well, I got a coat of paint on it. She got all cleaned up, and she's it was a bit of a job getting all that old paint off of there. But now she's shot with a proper plastic paint, so it should hold up. And what I'm using is just a VHT plastic paint, and unfortunately aluminum was the only color I could get that was reasonably close to the gray that it was. But it's kind of odd shades right now because it's flashing off, and once it dries it should settle down into a consistent color. But as you can tell here, I'll move the camera around, do a well, maybe not a side by side, but you can tell it's a a darn sight better than the the kind of worn flat gray. I like to call it almost like a battleship gray. And over time the paint's going to flake off. I mean, if you use a spray paint, that's just regular paint, even if it says it's made for plastic, they don't ever adhere very well. But if you use a proper plastic paint, it will bond, to the plastic, and it will stay, and it won't flake off like that. So I think he'll be tickled with it, and all his buddies over there are going to think he got a brand new four-wheeler. Well, so anyhow, that's going to do it for this bit, and so stay tuned for the next part where we'll get the rest of it done. And thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you would, and don't forget to click the little bell icon there so you'll be notified anytime I put up a new video. And you can always feel free to comment. I welcome all comments, the good, the bad, and the trolls, and the ugly. And also, if you want to, you can reach me offline at MacGyver's Workshop at gmail.com. Well, offline of YouTube anyway. And don't forget, check out our webpage we're cranking up. It's www.macgyversworkshop.net. And I'm going to try as I get more time to really pursue that angle and get the website up and going and to where it's got a good following and all that. But anyhow, we will see you next time.